It's 6:47 on a Tuesday morning, and you're standing in your kitchen waiting for the coffee to finish. Your phone is face down on the counter because you already know what's on it. The bank app. The number that's bigger than last month and somehow still not big enough. You make $140,000 a year. You have a house in a decent neighborhood, 2 cars in the garage, kids you love. A job title that would have impressed your 22-year-old self into stunned silence. And yet, if your car threw a transmission this afternoon, you'd be running the math on which credit card has the most room left on it. You'll work 8 hours today, tomorrow 8 more. Friday the paycheck hits, and by the following Thursday, it's mostly gone again. The rhythm is so steady you've stopped noticing it. Here's the thing nobody actually says out loud. You're not bad at money. You're winning the game exactly the way it was designed. And that's the part that doesn't add up. This is Rocket Finance, and today we're answering one specific question with real numbers. What actually changes in your life mechanically and emotionally when your investments start paying enough to cover even one of your bills? Not all of them, just one. If you want to stick around for the math, hit the subscribe button. I'll make it worth the 15 minutes. So let's name the thing first, because nobody else is going to. The reason a 6-figure earner can feel financially fragile is not because they bought too many lattes. It's because the entire consumer economy in America is built on the assumption that you trade your hours for dollars. And then you spend those dollars immediately on housing, transportation, healthcare, food, and debt service. To the same institutions that issued you the credit card that smoothed over the gap last time your income didn't quite reach the end of the month. The Federal Reserve's 2024 report on household well-being found that 37% of adults increased their spending from the prior year. While only 32% increased their income, that gap, repeated across 3 consecutive years, is not a personal failure. It's a structural one. Wages move in a straight line. Prices move in a different straight line. And the space between them is filled by your credit card balance. Piant's Intelligence put a number on it earlier this year. 67% of Americans say they live paycheck to paycheck. Half of people earning over $100,000 a year fall into that group. And the threshold where it starts to ease isn't until you cross somewhere between $125,000 and $150,000 in income. And even then, plenty of people above that line stay in the same monthly rhythm because their lifestyle scales right alongside their paycheck. The system is doing exactly what it was built to do. You are the throughput. Now here's where the math gets interesting. The Federal Reserve's data shows that 51% of adults spent less than their income last month, which means almost half spent equal to or more than what they brought in. Among those earning under $25,000, only 32% had any margin at all. 17% of adults didn't pay all their bills in full. 28% skipped some form of medical care because they couldn't afford it. 23% had a major unexpected medical expense in the prior 12 months, with a median cost between $1,000 and $2,000. Picture a 41-year-old product manager in Austin earning around $145,000 a year at a mid-sized tech firm. She's got a mortgage at 6.8%, 2 kids in after-school programs, a car payment, and a credit card balance she keeps promising she'll knock out by Christmas. In 2024, more than 124,000 tech workers were laid off, and she watched 3 of her direct reports get cut in February. Her active income, the salary that funds her entire life, can be turned off with a 15-minute Zoom call. That's the actual risk profile of trading hours for dollars at any income level. Now imagine she also has $50,000 a year coming in from somewhere that isn't her job. Distributions from a real estate fund, dividend payments, interest on private credit notes, whatever the vehicle. The IRS calls this unearned income, which is a uniquely insulting term for money that doesn't depend on whether your manager likes your last presentation. The legendary investor's famous line, the one quoted in roughly every personal finance article ever written, is that if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. Pew Research found that almost 1 in 5 Americans aged 65 or older were still working in 2023, up from 1 in 10 in the late 1980s. That trend isn't because people love their jobs more now, it's because the math stopped working. So what changes when passive income starts paying your bills? Let's go bill by bill, because the answer is not what the motivational posters say. The first bill it covers is usually the electric or the internet, somewhere in the range of $150 to $300 a month. The Federal Reserve report found that 5% of adults didn't pay their utility bill in full last month, and another 5% didn't pay phone or internet. When that line item is covered by a distribution check instead of your paycheck, nothing visible changes in your life. But your nervous system notices. The bandwidth you used to spend wondering if the autopay would clear gets freed up for something else. That's the first shift, and it's invisible from the outside. The second threshold is groceries plus utilities, somewhere between $800 and $1,400 a month depending on family size. At this point, you stop calculating at the checkout line. A 34-year-old nurse in Cleveland told a focus group last year that the first time her dividend payments covered her food budget, she cried in the cereal aisle, not because the amount was huge, but because she realized she'd been doing mental math on groceries since she was 19. The third threshold is your housing payment. This is the one that changes the structure of your week. Median mortgage payments in the U.S. now sit around $2,200, and median rent is just over $1,500. When that bill is covered by something other than your W-2, your job becomes optional in a way it has never been before. You can quit. You can take 6 months off. You can negotiate harder. The POIMENTS data shows that high earners who structure their lifestyles around their full salary with minimal savings face the same vulnerability as low-income households when conditions tighten. The difference between fragile and anti-fragile isn't the size of the paycheck. It's whether your survival depends on the next one arriving. And here's where the math starts to bend in your favor. Private real estate funds, the kind available to accredited investors, target annual returns in the range of 8 to 14%, with monthly or quarterly distributions. Publicly traded REITs are accessible to everyone and historically yield somewhere between 3 and 5%. Index fund dividends from broad equity holdings run around 1.5 to 2%. None of these are guaranteed, all of them carry risk, and I'm not telling you which one to pick. What I am telling you is that the category of income that doesn't depend on your hours exists, and the threshold for changing your life is lower than the personal finance industry usually admits. If your monthly nut is $4,000 and you need passive income to cover it, you need somewhere between $480,000 and $1.6 million in invested capital, depending on the yield. That's a real number. It's not small. But it's also not the $5 million the retirement calculators on your bank's website tell you to aim for. Because those calculators assume you stop earning entirely, never adjust your spending, and need 30 years of buffer. Covering your bills is a smaller target than retiring, and that smaller target arrives years earlier. Now, here's the part where I have to be honest with you about why most people who read this far still won't do anything about it. It's not laziness, it's not stupidity. It's a behavioral mechanism economists call lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most efficient wealth-destroying force in the American middle class. Lifestyle inflation works like this. Your income goes up by 15%. Within 90 days, your spending goes up by 15%. The new income feels normal almost immediately. The Federal Reserve data confirms this at the population level. Spending increases have outpaced income increases for 3 consecutive years. Higher earners cite family obligations, debt payments, and discretionary spending as the reasons they live paycheck to paycheck by choice. The kids' private school was a choice that became a necessity. The bigger house was a choice that became a necessity. The lease on the car was a choice that became a necessity. Each decision was rational in isolation. The aggregate is a trap. The psychological mechanism underneath this is that humans anchor to the lifestyle they currently have, not to the lifestyle they used to have. So a raise feels like more breathing room for about 2 weeks, and then it feels like the baseline. And then any reduction from that baseline feels like deprivation. The only way out is to redirect the raise before your nervous system gets used to it. Not 10% of it, not 20, the whole thing, or as close to the whole thing as you can stand, into an income-producing asset. Then the asset starts paying you, and that payment becomes the new income that gets redirected, and the flywheel starts turning. It is boring, it is slow, it is also the only version of this that actually works. So go back to that kitchen at 6:47 in the morning. The coffee is done, the phone is still face down, the number in the bank app is still what it is. But you understand now that the number isn't the problem. The structure that produces the number is the problem. You're not failing at money. You're succeeding at a game where the prize is doing the same thing again next month. The single takeaway is this: the point isn't to retire. The point is to make your job optional, one bill at a time. By owning something that pays you whether you show up or not. You are not behind. The target moved while you are working overtime to hit the old one. The system isn't designed to tell you this, because the system needs you to keep trading hours for dollars and spending those dollars immediately. The math out is real. It's slower than anyone wants it to be. And it starts the first month. One of your bills gets paid by something other than your boss. If this reframed anything for you, hit subscribe and stick around. We do this every week. This is Rocket Finance.